Beneath the gentle surface of our world's oceans and lakes, there are entire cities sleeping in the darkness, places where time stands still and stories are written not in words, but in stone, silt, and silence. These are not just piles of rubble or forgotten ruins. They are time capsules holding the dreams, innovations, and spiritual longings of civilizations that once reached for greatness. For centuries, the tales of these sunken worlds have haunted our myths and legends, from the glittering spires of Atlantis to the sacred shores of Dwarka, hinting at truths far stranger and more profound than fiction. And what's truly astonishing is that today, we're beginning to uncover them. We're about to embark on a journey into the deep, exploring how submerged architecture reveals secrets that land-based ruins simply cannot. These drowned buildings are more than historical artifacts. They are mirrors reflecting human ambition, fragility, and our enduring desire to build legacies that outlast us. Through them, we can decode the values of societies long gone, understand the engineering marvels they achieved against incredible odds, and even piece together the environmental and mythological forces that shaped their fates. This is where science meets story, where sonar images and ancient texts converge to rewrite what we thought we knew about our past. So if you've ever wondered what lies beneath the waves, how entire cities vanish, why we're so captivated by their loss, or what these silent structures can teach us about our own place in history, you're in the right place. Together, we'll navigate the blurred lines between myth and reality, from the oldest submerged city ever discovered to controversial monuments that challenge everything we assume about early human civilization. By the end of this exploration, you won't just see drowned buildings as relics of the past. You'll understand them as living narratives, urging us to listen and to remember. There is a profound and almost haunting beauty in the idea of a city sleeping beneath the waves. It's a concept that tugs at something deep within us, a blend of awe and melancholy that is uniquely powerful. Think about it, these were once bustling centers of human life, filled with the sounds of markets, the prayers in temples, and the footsteps of generations. Now they exist in a silent, watery museum, visited only by fish and the occasional diver. This transformation from a vibrant hub to a ghostly relic is a stark reminder of time's relentless passage and nature's ultimate authority. It's not just about the loss itself, but about the poignant beauty found in that loss. The way coral encrusts ancient statues, how sunlight filters through submerged colonnades. These scenes are visually stunning, but they also carry a heavy emotional weight. They make us contemplate the impermanence of our own creations and the stories that are inevitably left behind. This fascination is deeply rooted in our psychology. Sunken cities represent the ultimate what if. They are tangible proof of entire worlds that vanished, offering a glimpse into alternate histories and forgotten ways of life. They sit at that fragile boundary between order and chaos, between the civilization we build and the natural forces that can so easily reclaim it. This taps into a universal human anxiety about collapse, whether from environmental disaster, war, or simply the passage of time. Exploring these ruins allows us to safely confront these fears. It's a way to process the concept of an ending, to see that even in destruction there can be preservation and a strange, quiet peace. It satisfies a deep curiosity about the unknown and answers a primal call to explore hidden realms, much like the allure of deep space or unexplored caves. Mythology has long prepared us for this fascination. For thousands of years, cultures around the world have told stories of great floods and sunken kingdoms. Plato's Atlantis is the most famous, a powerful and advanced civilization that fell out of favor with the gods and was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. But these tales are far more than simple entertainment. They often serve as moral parables cautioning against hubris, greed, and disrespect for the natural world. The message is clear: even the mightiest empire is not immune to nature's judgment. These stories encoded very real geological memories, tsunamis, earthquakes, rising sea levels, that ancient peoples experienced but couldn't explain scientifically. The myth provided a framework to understand the terrifying and inexplicable power that could make the very ground beneath their feet disappear. So when we discover a real sunken city like Dwarka or Pavlopetri, it feels like we are uncovering the truth behind the legend, bridging the gap between ancient story and historical fact. The eerie preservation of these sites adds another layer to their allure. While land-based ruins are exposed to wind, rain, looting, and modern development, underwater sites are often protected by layers of sediment and the stability of their aquatic environment. The low oxygen levels slow decay, meaning wood, organic material, and even delicate artifacts can survive for millennia in stunning condition. This allows archaeologists to find a frozen moment in time, a meal left on a table, a tool dropped in a courtyard, offering an intimate, heartbreakingly human connection to the past that is often missing from other ruins. This pristine state allows experts to piece together daily life with incredible accuracy, turning scattered stones and pottery into a coherent narrative of how people lived, worked, and worshipped. Ultimately, the allure of sunken cities is a complex tapestry woven from threads of beauty, fear, curiosity, and respect. They are monuments to human ambition and to nature's power, to stories told and those waiting to be decoded. This powerful attraction is what pulls us beneath the surface, compelling us to search for answers in the silent halls of drowned worlds. Long before the first dive suit was invented or the first sonar ping echoed through the deep, humanity was already mapping the ocean's secrets through the power of story. These ancient myths of sunken kingdoms and great floods are far more than fanciful tales told around fires. They are the original blueprints, the first attempts to make sense of a world where the very ground could vanish beneath the waves. For generations, these narratives were passed down not as mere entertainment, but as vital containers of memory, holding within them the echoes of real, catastrophic events that shaped the ancient world. Consider the most famous of them all, the legend of Atlantis. Plato's account, written in the 4th century BC, describes a powerful, technologically advanced island nation that fell out of favor with the gods and was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. For centuries, it was treated as a philosophical allegory about hubris, but modern geology suggests it might be rooted in a terrifying historical reality. Around 1600 BC, the volcanic island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, erupted with a force estimated to be 4 times that of the famous Krakatoa explosion. The cataclysm would have generated colossal tsunamis, blanketing the region in ash and devastating the sophisticated Minoan civilization on nearby Crete. The memory of this world-altering event, which wiped out entire coastal communities in a blink of geologic time, could easily have been preserved for 1,000 years before finding its way into Plato's dialogues, transformed into the story of a utopia lost beneath the sea. This pattern of myth-preserving geological truth repeats itself across the globe. In India, the ancient Sanskrit texts of the Mahabharata and the Puranas describe in vivid detail the magnificent city of Dwarka, built by the god-hero Krishna. It was a place of unparalleled splendor with grand palaces, wide boulevards, and a bustling port, until the day Krishna departed the earthly realm and the sea rose to claim his city. For millennia, this was considered a purely religious narrative. That is, until marine archaeologists began discovering the remains of a vast, ancient settlement submerged off the western coast of Gujarat. The structures, pottery, and artifacts they recovered dated back to a time frame that strikingly aligns with the traditional chronology of Krishna's era. The myth, it turned out, wasn't just a story. It was a cultural memory of a real place that met a real, watery end. So what purpose did these stories serve? They functioned as a powerful combination of history book, moral compass, and warning label for ancient societies. By encoding a traumatic environmental event into a mythic framework, a culture could process the unexplainable. A tsunami becomes the wrath of a displeased god. The slow, inexorable rise of sea levels becomes a deliberate act of divine reclamation. These narratives transformed random geological misfortune into a story with meaning and consequence, often serving as cautionary tales. They warned against arrogance, against forgetting the gods, against disrupting the natural order. The sunken city became the ultimate symbol of impermanence, a reminder that no civilization, no matter how great, is immune to the forces of nature. This interplay between the symbolic and the literal is what makes these myths so invaluable to us today. They provide a unique lens through which we can interpret the submerged architecture we now discover. A staircase leading into the abyss isn't just a collapsed building feature. Through the lens of myth, it might be seen as a symbolic descent into the underworld. The layout of a city, its alignment to certain stars or currents, might reflect not just engineering practicality, but a deep cosmological belief system about the relationship between land, water, and the divine. The myths give us the cultural context, the why behind the what. They remind us that these drowned buildings were not just collections of stone and wood. They were the physical manifestations of a society's dreams, fears, and understanding of the universe. By listening to these ancient stories, we learn to read the ruins not just as archaeologists, but as storytellers ourselves, piecing together the profound and poignant human drama written on the ocean floor. While the myths give us the powerful stories and symbolic meanings behind these sunken worlds, science offers us the physical blueprints for how they actually ended up beneath the waves. The forces that send a city to the bottom of the sea are as varied as they are powerful, and understanding them is key to unlocking the true history preserved in these underwater time capsules. One of the most dramatic processes is tectonic subsidence, where massive sections of the Earth's crust slowly sink due to the relentless movement of tectonic plates. Imagine the ground beneath a bustling port city gradually, inexorably, lowering itself meter by meter over centuries until the sea finally claims its streets. This is precisely what happened to the ancient Egyptian cities of Heracleion and Canopus near the Nile Delta. Once thriving hubs of trade and culture, they now lie completely submerged in the Mediterranean, their colossal statues and temples silent witnesses to the immense power of geological forces. A far more widespread and gradual force is eustatic sea level rise. As the last great ice age ended around 12,000 years ago, massive continental glaciers began to melt, releasing enormous volumes of water back into the world's oceans. This wasn't a slow trickle, it was a global transformation that reshaped coastlines and drowned entire landscapes that had been home to humans for millennia. One of the most dramatic examples is Doggerland, a vast, fertile plain that once connected Great Britain to mainland Europe. For thousands of years, it was inhabited by Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, a lost world now lying beneath the chilly waves of the North Sea. Similar stories played out across the globe, from the Persian Gulf to the coasts of Australia. where rising waters slowly but surely inundated coastal settlements, forcing human migration and forever burying evidence of early human expansion. Then there are the sudden, violent catastrophes that can erase a city in a single day. Earthquakes can trigger massive landslides that send entire sections of coastline sliding into the deep, or generate devastating tsunamis that smash through walls and drag structures out to sea. Volcanic activity presents a unique and terrifying threat, as the Roman city of Baiae learned all too well. Located in the Bay of Naples, Baiae was a famous resort town for Rome's elite, known for its luxurious villas and healing hot springs. But it was built directly on a volatile volcanic field. The same geological activity that fueled its baths also caused a phenomenon called bradysism, where the ground slowly inflates and deflates due to magma movement underground. Combined with volcanic vents, this led to large portions of the city sinking beneath the bay, where its marble floors and sunken domes now create an underwater archaeological park. Beyond these dramatic events, slower environmental factors also play a crucial role. Soil erosion, driven by wind and rain, can wear away the foundations of coastal structures, weakening them until they succumb to the sea. The relentless deposition of silt from mighty rivers can slowly bury a city's port, choking its economic lifeblood and then eventually entombing it under meters of sediment. This process can actually aid preservation, creating a protective blanket that shields delicate artifacts from oxygen and light. And that preservation is what makes these submerged sites so incredibly valuable to archaeologists. The underwater environment, counterintuitively, can be far kinder to ancient materials than the open air. The cold, dark, low oxygen conditions at the bottom of the sea dramatically slow down the decay process. Organic materials that would have completely vanished on land, wooden beams, tools, textiles, even food remains, can survive for millennia. Stonework avoids the damaging freeze-thaw cycles and acid rain that erode land-based ruins. This creates an almost magical snapshot in time, a moment frozen not by intention but by accident, offering a level of detail about daily life in the ancient world that we can rarely access elsewhere. By understanding the specific natural force that caused a city to sink, scientists can better predict what they might find and how those artifacts have been altered or perfectly preserved by their long submersion. This scientific context transforms these sites from mere mysteries into readable records, setting the stage for us to truly appreciate the architectural marvels we are about to explore. Now let's turn our attention to one of the most extraordinary places where ancient story and modern discovery literally converge beneath the waves. Off the coast of modern-day Gujarat in western India, the submerged city of Dwarka presents a stunning case study of myth stepping out of the sacred texts and into the realm of archaeological fact. For thousands of years, the legend of Dwarka was preserved in Hindu scriptures like the Mahabharata and the Puranas. These texts describe a city of unparalleled beauty and technological sophistication, built by the divine architect Vishwakarma at the request of Lord Krishna himself. It was said to have been a marvel of urban planning, with majestic palaces, wide roads, lush gardens, and a bustling port filled with ships from distant lands. The myth recounts that after Krishna's departure from the earthly realm, the great city was abandoned to the sea, vanishing beneath the waves as if it had never been. For centuries, this account was considered a powerful allegory, a spiritual metaphor rather than a historical record. That perception began to shift dramatically in the 1980s when marine archaeologists started exploring the waters near the modern city of Dwarka. What they found sent ripples through the academic world. Sonar surveys and diving expeditions revealed the remains of a vast, submerged settlement, a sprawling complex of stone structures resting on the seabed. The layout suggested a well-planned urban center with what appear to be the foundations of fortifications, public buildings, and a network of streets. The scale and organization pointed towards a society capable of significant maritime engineering and large-scale construction. The artifacts recovered from the site have been just as revealing. Pottery shards, stone tools, and other everyday objects have been carefully dated, with many pieces placed between 1500 and 2000 years before the Common Era. This time frame is crucial because it aligns remarkably well with the traditional chronology for Lord Krishna's life as described in the ancient texts. It's a synchrony that is almost too perfect to ignore, suggesting the stories were based on a real place and a real event. Even more compelling are the architectural features that have been documented. Divers have identified large, interlocking stone blocks that form massive walls, hinting at a need for strong defenses or an ability to withstand powerful oceanic forces. Evidence of what seems to be an intricate drainage system indicates a sophisticated understanding of urban water management, a feature one would expect in a major, advanced city. This convergence of the mythological and the archaeological forces us to reconsider the boundaries between legend and history. The discovery doesn't necessarily prove the divine nature of Lord Krishna, but it does provide compelling evidence that the stories about him were rooted in a tangible historical reality. A great city did exist on that coast, and it did, for reasons we are still deciphering, end up beneath the sea. This realization elevates the ancient texts from mere fables to potential repositories of cultural memory, preserving the echo of a catastrophic event that shaped the identity of a civilization. Dwarka stands as a powerful testament to the idea that our oldest stories often contain kernels of truth, waiting for us to develop the technology and the perspective to find them. As we continue to study its sunken structures, we are not just analyzing stone and pottery. We are decoding a message from the past, one that bridges a gap of millennia and brings a legendary city back into the light of history. While the dramatic collapse of cities like Dwarka captures our imagination, there's another kind of underwater story, one that unfolds not with a cataclysmic roar but with a slow, patient sigh. This is the story of Pavlopetri, a name that might not ring with the same mythical grandeur as Atlantis, but whose silent, sunken streets offer us something perhaps even more valuable, a perfectly preserved snapshot of ordinary life from a time before recorded history. Nestled just beneath the surface of the crystal-clear waters off the coast of southern Laconia in Greece, this city is a time traveler's dream. Dating back an astonishing 5,000 years, it holds the title of the oldest known submerged city in the world, a blueprint of Bronze Age existence frozen in time. What makes Pavlopetri so extraordinary is its breathtaking completeness. Discovered in 1967 by oceanographer Nicholas Fleming and meticulously mapped by a team from the University of Cambridge, the city layout is so intact you can practically trace the daily commutes of its ancient inhabitants. We're not looking at a few scattered foundation stones here, we are looking at an entire urban plan. The ghostly outlines of streets still crisscross the seabed, defining neighborhoods and connecting public spaces. The footprints of buildings, from small single-room dwellings to larger complexes, suggest a structured society. There are courtyards where families might have gathered, and even tombs, reminding us that this was a living, breathing community that honored its dead. This isn't just a collection of ruins, it's a panoramic view of a lost world. The architectural details reveal a society far more sophisticated than we often assume for the period. Evidence points to the existence of two-story buildings, a significant technological achievement that implies a strong understanding of structural engineering and a desire to maximize living space within a confined area. Archaeologists have identified the remains of ceramic kilns, indicating a local industry for producing pottery, likely for both domestic use and trade. Perhaps most impressively, the city appears to have been designed with a sophisticated water management system, featuring channels and conduits that would have managed fresh water and waste. This level of urban planning suggests a centralized authority, social organization, and a collective knowledge passed down through generations, all dedicated to creating a functional and resilient community. Unlike many sunken cities that met a sudden, violent end from an earthquake or tsunami, Pavlopetri tells a different, more gradual story. Its descent beneath the waves was a slow dance with rising sea levels following the last ice age. This gradual submergence is a gift to archaeologists because it means the city was largely abandoned in an orderly fashion, not suddenly destroyed. People likely had time to collect their most valuable belongings and move to higher ground. This process left the city's infrastructure remarkably undisturbed, free from the chaotic debris of a rapid catastrophe. It allows researchers to study the city's evolution, to see how buildings were modified or added onto over centuries, providing a unique longitudinal study of an ancient community adapting to a changing world. The artifacts recovered from the site are the intimate human touches that bring this blueprint to life. Pottery fragments, some with traces of olive oil and wine, tell us about their diet and trade networks. Simple stone tools and loom weights speak to the daily chores of crafting and weaving, and the discovery of religious figurines offers a precious glimpse into their spiritual beliefs and the deities they worshipped. Even the city's orientation is revealing. Its layout seems to have been carefully planned with an acute awareness of the local maritime environment, taking advantage of natural coves for sheltering boats and aligning with prevailing winds and currents to facilitate travel and trade. This wasn't a people fighting against their environment. They were intelligently integrating with it, using their deep knowledge to thrive. Pavlopetri doesn't just challenge our assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. It quietly insists we rewrite them, showing us a portrait of resilience, adaptation, and a deeply human desire to build a home, even on the very edge of a changing world. Now we journey to a site that stands apart from the sunken cities we've explored, a place where the very definition of architecture is put to the test. Off the remote coast of Yonaguni Island, the westernmost point of Japan, the ocean floor holds a spectacle that has divided experts and captivated imaginations since a local diver first brought it to the world's attention in 1986. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a sprawling, enigmatic structure that plunges us into one of the most heated debates in underwater archaeology. Is it the handiwork of a lost, advanced civilization, or simply a masterpiece of natural geological artistry? The site itself is a series of breathtaking formations that seem too perfect to be random. There are vast, flat terraces that drop like giant steps into the abyss. There are sharp, 90-degree angles where massive stone blocks meet. There are what appear to be carved pillars, straight trenches that run with uncanny precision, and even formations that look like staircases, platforms, and a massive rectangular archway. To the eye, it feels intentional, designed. It feels like a place. This compelling appearance is the cornerstone of the argument for human origin. Proponents, most notably the late marine geologist Professor Masaki Kimura, spent decades studying the site and pointing to specific features that defy easy natural explanation. They highlight the two near-perfect right-angled corners on the main terrace, a rarity in nature. They point to the straight, parallel grooves and the perfectly circular holes that look like they were drilled for structural support. The sheer symmetry and repetitive patterns, they argue, are the hallmarks of intelligent design. If this interpretation is correct, the implications are staggering. Carbon dating of stalactites found in an underwater cave nearby suggests the area was above water during the last ice age, meaning this structure, if man-made, would have been built over 10,000 years ago. This timeline predates the oldest known megalithic structures on land, like Göbekli Tepe, by thousands of years. It would force a complete rewrite of human history in the Pacific, suggesting the existence of a sophisticated culture with advanced stone-working skills and seafaring capabilities that we never knew existed, a potential real-world connection to legendary lost continents like Mu or Lemuria. Yet, for every compelling argument, the skeptics offer a powerful geological counterpoint. They argue that the sandstones that make up the Yonaguni Formation are naturally bedded, meaning they fracture along straight lines and planes. The powerful currents in the area, combined with tectonic activity that frequently causes earthquakes, are more than capable of fracturing the rock into these dramatic, geometric shapes. Geologist Robert Schoch, who has dived the site extensively, acknowledges its awe-inspiring appearance but attributes it to natural sandstone weathering, a process known as jointing, which can create remarkably clean fractures and platforms. He and others note that similar formations can be found on the nearby cliffs of Yonaguni Island itself, which are unquestionably natural. The carvings, they suggest, could be natural tool marks from feeding marine life or the results of rocks scraping together during seismic events. For them, the human tendency to see patterns and faces in random shapes, a phenomenon called pareidolia, is the real force at work here, transforming a fascinating natural wonder into an archaeological mystery. This fundamental disagreement is what makes Yonaguni so endlessly fascinating. It sits squarely in the gray area between known natural processes and the tantalizing possibility of a forgotten human past. It forces us to confront our own biases and the limits of our knowledge. How do we definitively prove human agency on a structure that has been subjected to millennia of powerful underwater erosion? What standard of evidence is required to accept a site that would so radically alter our historical timeline? The monument doesn't offer easy answers. It simply exists, a silent, brooding puzzle on the ocean floor. Its greatest gift to us may not be a definitive solution, but the profound questions it raises about the ingenuity of nature and the potential resilience of human memory. It challenges us to keep looking, to keep questioning, and to remain open to the possibility that the deep blue sea still holds stories we have not yet begun to imagine. One of the most profound gifts these underwater time capsules offer is an almost pristine view of ancient architectural genius. Shielded from the destructive forces that ravage land-based ruins, the relentless cycles of freezing and thawing, the scouring of wind-blown sand, the trampling of later settlements, and the modern developer's bulldozer, these submerged structures are often frozen in a state of remarkable preservation. This allows us to dissect the engineering choices of our ancestors with a clarity that is simply impossible on dry land, revealing a sophisticated understanding of materials, environment, and design that continues to astonish modern experts. Consider the very fabric of these buildings. In the sunken Roman resort of Baiae, located in the Bay of Naples, we find a stunning example of material science that was lost for centuries. The Romans developed a unique type of concrete, a mix that included volcanic ash, lime, and seawater. Incredibly, this particular recipe doesn't weaken when submerged. Instead, a chemical reaction with the saltwater continues to strengthen the material over time, forming crystals that lock the concrete into an ever more durable state. This is why Baiae's grand domes, intricate mosaics, and stately columns still stand majestically beneath the waves, while many of their land-based contemporaries have crumbled to dust. It's a technology we are only now beginning to fully understand and even seek to replicate for modern marine construction. Beyond the materials themselves, the sheer scale of engineering on display forces us to reconsider the capabilities of ancient cultures. The massive, precisely cut megalithic blocks that form the controversial Yonaguni structure, if confirmed to be human-made, would indicate a society with an advanced knowledge of quarrying, transporting, and assembling enormous stones, a feat that parallels the construction of the pyramids or Stonehenge. Meanwhile, the interlocking stonework discovered at Dwarka suggests a civilization that engineered for seismic stability, creating foundations resilient enough to withstand earthquakes and the constant pull of ocean currents. This wasn't just about building grand monuments, it was about building to last in a challenging environment. The intelligence of these ancient builders is further revealed in their urban planning. At Pavlopetri, the world's oldest known submerged city, the 5,000-year-old street grid is so perfectly preserved we can still walk its routes in our mind's eye. The layout shows a sophisticated understanding of urban flow, with distinct zones for living, working, and likely worship, but the planning goes even deeper. The orientation of the city's main streets appears to be deliberately aligned to capture the cooling sea breezes, a natural form of air conditioning for its Bronze Age inhabitants. Buildings were often constructed with raised foundations, a clear adaptation for managing seasonal flooding or storm surges long before the city was permanently claimed by the sea. Port structures and breakwaters were engineered with an intimate knowledge of local tidal patterns and wave action, creating safe havens for trade ships that connected this community to a wider Mediterranean world. Yet these architectural choices were never purely practical. They were deeply intertwined with the cultural and spiritual values of the people who made them. The strict symmetry and harmonious proportions found in Greek and Roman ruins reflect a philosophical pursuit of balance and ideal form, a belief that beauty and function were two sides of the same coin. In Hindu temple architecture, as suggested by findings at Dwarka, the entire layout of a city or sacred complex might be designed as a mandala, a symbolic map of the cosmos, aligning gates and streets with celestial bodies or cardinal directions to create a spiritual connection between heaven and earth. Even the act of building near or over water often held profound symbolic meaning, linking the community to deities of creation, purification, or the underworld. This incredible underwater preservation thus provides us with a dual ledger, a technical manual of ancient engineering prowess and a spiritual blueprint of ancient belief. By studying these styles side by side, we can begin to trace the flow of ideas across civilizations. We can see how building techniques might have been traded along with spices and silks, and how different environments prompted unique innovations. The silent stone testimony of these drowned buildings doesn't just show us what our ancestors built. It reveals how they thought, what they valued, and how they saw their place in a vast, unpredictable world. It is a masterclass in design that has weathered the test of centuries and the depths of the sea. But these structures are far more than just stone and sediment. They are vessels of meaning, whispering symbolic messages from the depths. To truly understand a sunken city, we must learn to read its architecture not just as engineering, but as a language of myth and belief. Water itself is the most powerful symbol at play here, representing a profound duality across nearly every culture. It is the source of all life, the primordial womb from which creation emerges, yet it is also an unstoppable force of chaos and destruction, capable of wiping entire civilizations from the map in a single divine gesture. A city claimed by the sea, therefore, becomes a powerful paradox, a symbol of both an ending and a potential beginning, of punishment and purification. This dual nature is brilliantly illustrated in the stories these ruins inspired. Plato's account of Atlantis is not merely a historical curiosity, it is a deliberate moral allegory. The sinking of that fabled island serves as the ultimate cautionary tale against hubris, militarism, and the corruption of an ideal society. Its descent into the ocean is an act of divine judgment, a reset button pressed by the gods. Similarly, in Hindu cosmology, the submergence of Lord Krishna's city of Dwarka marks the critical juncture between two great cosmic ages, the Dvapara Yuga and the Kali Yuga. Its disappearance is not a random tragedy but a necessary, preordained dissolution, making way for a new cycle of time. The city's drowning is a symbolic cleansing, a return to the primordial waters before the world can begin anew. Beyond the overarching myth, the very design of these places is often a code waiting to be cracked. A staircase discovered in a sunken temple, its steps descending endlessly into the dark abyss, might be far more than a functional feature. It could be a symbolic representation of a journey to the underworld, a spiritual pathway for rituals connecting the world of the living with the realm of the dead. Circular formations or concentric rings of stone, like those sometimes speculated at Yonaguni, often evoke powerful ideas of cosmic order, the cyclical nature of time, and the eternal, wheel-like turning of existence found in many ancient philosophies. Even the potential presence of carved figures, a turtle, a serpent, a face, shifts a site from a mere settlement to a potential ritual space, a place where mythology was literally set in stone to tell a story of creation, devotion, or warning. The symbolism is often written in the landscape itself. The orientation of a building or an entire city lay out frequently reveals a deep celestial awareness. A temple gateway aligned with the rising sun on a solstice, or a main street pointing toward a significant star, transforms urban planning into a form of worship, anchoring the human world to the divine clockwork of the heavens. Similarly, a port city's alignment with specific currents or tidal patterns might reflect a practical understanding of hydrodynamics, but it could also signify a reverence for ocean deities or a belief in the sacred pathways of the sea. Decoding this layered symbolism requires a collaborative dance between disciplines. Archaeologists provide the physical evidence, the orientation of walls, the placement of artifacts. Mythologists and historians bring the ancient texts and oral traditions that give context to those findings, and comparative cultural studies help us see the universal patterns, the shared human inclination to imbue our greatest creations with meaning that transcends their practical use. By learning to read this symbolic language, we achieve something remarkable. We move beyond simply understanding how these ancient people built their world. We begin to understand why. We glimpse their fears, their aspirations, their concept of the divine, and their place in the universe. A submerged structure ceases to be a lonely ruin and becomes a narrative, a story of human ambition etched in stone, a prayer whispered against the relentless power of the sea, and a timeless message about the rise and fall of empires. It is in this decoding that these drowned buildings truly breathe again, sharing their secrets not of conquest, but of the enduring human spirit. The true genius of these ancient builders is revealed not just in the fact that their creations still stand, but in the sophisticated understanding of their environment that made such longevity possible. Their innovations were born from a deep, intimate dialogue with the natural world, a conversation we are only now relearning. Consider the Roman approach to marine concrete, a technological marvel that seems almost counterintuitive. While modern concrete crumbles and weakens with constant exposure to saltwater, the Roman recipe, a mix of volcanic ash, lime, and seawater, performs a kind of alchemy. The saltwater doesn't destroy it, It triggers a continuous chemical reaction, forming rare crystals like aluminous tobermorite within the mixture. This process actually strengthens the concrete over centuries, effectively allowing structures like the harbor at Caesarea Maritima to become more resilient with time. It's a self-healing material, a concept that modern material scientists are desperately trying to emulate for our own crumbling infrastructure. This wasn't a lucky accident. It was applied materials science of the highest order, developed through meticulous observation and experimentation. This mastery extended far beyond just mixing the right materials. In the sunken city of Dwarka, archaeologists have documented the use of interlocking stone blocks, a building technique that provided exceptional stability in a dynamic and challenging environment. These precisely cut stones, fitted together without any mortar, created a flexible foundation that could absorb and dissipate the immense energy of seismic activity and the constant, erosive force of ocean currents. It's a principle still used in modern earthquake-resistant engineering, demonstrating an intuitive grasp of physics and structural integrity. Similarly, the Minoans on Crete, centuries before the Romans, engineered complex terracotta pipe systems for drainage and freshwater supply. Their palaces featured sophisticated networks of channels and cisterns designed to manage torrential rain and prevent flooding, a system that continued to function effectively even as water levels rose around them. This proactive approach to water management shows they weren't just building structures, they were building systems designed to coexist with the elements. Perhaps most impressive was their large-scale civil engineering, which displayed a prescient understanding of hydrodynamics, the movement and behavior of water. The construction of massive breakwaters and seawalls, like those protecting the harbor of Alexandria in Egypt, required an incredible ability to model wave patterns and tidal forces. These were not simple walls, they were carefully designed barriers that altered the flow of water to create calm, safe harbors for ships, fueling trade and economic prosperity. In many coastal cities, we find evidence of elevated platforms and foundations, a clear adaptation to mitigate the impact of storm surges and seasonal high tides. The ancient Greeks even developed a device called the shadda for lifting water, and used screw pumps for irrigation and draining bilge water from ships, showcasing an early application of mechanical principles to solve water-related problems. The legacy of these ancient technological marvels is profoundly relevant today, as we face our own crisis with rising sea levels and increasingly powerful coastal storms. We are turning back to these time-tested strategies for inspiration. The concept of building with nature, using natural materials and designs that work with environmental forces rather than against them, is a cornerstone of modern sustainable architecture. The Roman recipe for self-healing concrete is being actively researched to develop new, more durable materials for our own seawalls and marine infrastructure. The interlocking, flexible foundations seen at Dwarka inform modern designs for buildings in earthquake-prone zones. By decoding these methods, we are not just uncovering the past, we are accessing a vast library of proven, sustainable engineering solutions. This challenges the very notion of linear progress, reminding us that technological sophistication is not always about increasing complexity, but about deepening our understanding of the world around us and designing with profound, enduring wisdom. The forces that shaped the ancient sunken cities we marvel at today were largely localized and geological tectonic shifts, volcanic eruptions, or the slow, post-glacial sea level rise that claimed a place like Pavlopetri over centuries. But the threat facing our coastal heritage now is of a different magnitude entirely. It is global, accelerating, and unmistakably linked to human activity. Modern climate change, driven by the warming of our planet, is writing a new and urgent chapter in the story of submerged architecture, one where the sea is no longer a preserver of ancient history, but an active eraser of our more recent past. The relentless rise of ocean levels, fueled by the melting of polar ice caps and the simple thermal expansion of warmer water, is quietly consuming the world's coastal historical sites at an alarming pace. We see this unfolding in real time across the globe. The magnificent city of Venice, a masterpiece of medieval and Renaissance architecture, now faces increasingly frequent and devastating aqua alta, or high water events. The corrosive saltwater seeps into the foundations of centuries-old buildings, eating away at marble, undermining structural integrity, and threatening irreplaceable art and history with each new flood. Further afield, the situation is even more dire. In the Maldives, an island nation built upon cultural heritage, ancient Buddhist temples and settlements are already being lost to the encroaching waves, their stories silenced before they can be fully documented. Across Southeast Asia, from the ancient trading ports of Indonesia to the coastal ruins of Vietnam, the same story is playing out. These are not slow geological processes. They are climate change fast-forwards, compressing a millennium of natural change into a single human lifetime. Yet, in a profound and paradoxical twist, the same planetary warming that is drowning our coasts is also, in some places, acting as a great revealer. As glaciers and ice sheets recede at an unprecedented rate, they are exposing landscapes that have been frozen and hidden for thousands of years. In Greenland, archaeologists are discovering perfectly preserved artifacts from Norse Viking settlements, tools, clothing, and even human remains released from their icy tombs, offering new insights into a culture that grappled with a much earlier period of climate shift. Similarly, in the far north of Canada and Alaska, melting permafrost is yielding treasures from ancient Inuit and First Nations communities, while also threatening to rapidly decay them once exposed to the air. In Florida, shifting sand patterns and lower water levels in some lakes due to drought have temporarily revealed the outlines of ancient Native American villages, providing a fleeting glimpse into a pre-colonial past. This dual role of climate change as both destroyer and unveiler forces us into a complex ethical race against time, where discovery and rescue archaeology must happen in a narrow window before these exposed treasures are lost to the elements forever. This present-day crisis casts the ancient sunken cities we've explored in a powerful new light. They are no longer just fascinating relics. They are stark case studies in environmental resilience and collapse. They stand as silent testimonials to the fact that civilizations have always been vulnerable to a changing climate. The submergence of a city like Dwarka or the gradual abandonment of Pavlopetri can be seen as historical precedents, showing us how past societies responded to existential environmental threats. Did they adapt, innovate, and move to higher ground, or did they rigidly cling to old ways until it was too late? Their ruins hold the answers, offering us invaluable lessons in long-term sustainability, the importance of flexible urban planning, and the critical need to respect environmental limits. They are a haunting reminder that the rise and fall of human achievement is often tied to our relationship with the natural world. This deep connection between past, present, and future makes the work of decoding submerged architecture more critically relevant than it has ever been. It transforms it from a purely academic pursuit into a vital source of wisdom for our own time. As we work to document and understand the cities we are losing to the sea today, we are simultaneously learning from those that were lost millennia ago. They provide a long-term perspective on the consequences of environmental change, urging us to look beyond short-term gains and consider the legacy we are creating for future generations. The secrets written in these drowned buildings are no longer just about mythology and ancient engineering. They are urgent messages about adaptation, survival, and the profound responsibility we hold as the current custodians of both our cultural heritage and our planet's future. Uncovering the secrets hidden within these drowned cities demands a unique fusion of disciplines, a marriage of classic archaeology with cutting-edge marine technology. The process begins not with shovels but with sound. Sonar systems mounted on research vessels send precise acoustic pulses down through the water column. By measuring the time it takes for these sound waves to bounce off the seafloor and return, computers can construct incredibly detailed three-dimensional maps of the submerged landscape. This allows archaeologists to see the full scope of a site, the outlines of buildings, the path of ancient roads, the layout of harbor walls, all without ever touching a single stone. It's like having a set of underwater blueprints, revealing a city's entire plan and guiding divers directly to the most promising areas for closer inspection. For sites lying in deep, dark, or treacherous waters where human divers cannot safely operate, scientists deploy sophisticated robotic explorers. These remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, are essentially underwater drones equipped with high-definition cameras, powerful lights, and manipulator arms that can be controlled by pilots on a surface ship. They can spend hours meticulously surveying a site, hovering steadily in strong currents to capture crystal-clear images and video of delicate artifacts. Some are even equipped with specialized sensors that can detect slight chemical changes in the water or the magnetic signatures of buried metals, helping to pinpoint objects invisible to the naked eye. These robotic avatars allow us to explore the abyssal plains and deepest trenches, pushing the boundaries of discovery to places once thought completely unreachable. When it is time to physically interact with a site, the approach is one of meticulous care and precision, a far cry from the treasure hunting of the past. Underwater archaeologists are trained to excavate with the same painstaking detail as their land-based colleagues, but they must do so while managing buoyancy, limited visibility, and the constant challenge of working against the clock on a finite air supply. They use small, handheld dredges that act like underwater vacuum cleaners, gently sucking away layers of sand and silt while a colleague carefully sifts through the discharged material to ensure no small artifact is lost. Every object, from a massive stone block to a tiny seed, is meticulously photographed and its exact position recorded using a three-dimensional grid system before it is ever moved. This context is everything. Knowing where an object was found, what it was next to, and how it was oriented can tell us far more about its use and significance than the object itself. Once artifacts are recovered, the real detective work begins back in the laboratory. To determine exactly when a city was active or when a specific object was created, scientists turn to a suite of advanced dating techniques. Radiocarbon dating measures the steady decay of a radioactive isotope in organic materials like wood, bone, or seeds, providing a reliable age for anything that was once alive. For inorganic materials like pottery, a method called thermoluminescence dating is used. This technique measures the tiny amount of light energy trapped within a ceramic object since the last time it was fired in a kiln, effectively reading its internal clock. Meanwhile, geologists can analyze core samples of the sediment layers surrounding a ruin. The pollen, microscopic shells, and chemical composition within these layers can tell a vivid story of the ancient environment, revealing whether the city was lost to a sudden tsunami, a gradual rise in sea level, or perhaps a catastrophic earthquake that liquefied the ground beneath it. But the most crucial tool in the underwater archaeologist's kit is perhaps the least technological and the most human: collaboration. A pot shard is just a piece of clay until a historian can match its style to a known cultural period. A strange symbol carved into a wall remains a mystery until a mythologist can connect it to a local legend passed down for generations. Most importantly, the descendants of the people who built these sunken cities often hold the key to their true meaning. Working closely with local and indigenous communities is not just an ethical imperative. It provides invaluable cultural context that can transform a puzzling arrangement of stones into a recognized temple layout or a ceremonial plaza. This interdisciplinary dialogue, weaving together hard data with oral traditions and historical records, is what ultimately breathes life back into these silent ruins. It transforms a collection of scattered evidence into a coherent and compelling chapter of the human story, allowing these drowned buildings to finally share the secrets they have guarded for millennia. What is truly astounding is not that one culture has a story about a world-ending flood, but that nearly every culture on every continent, separated by vast oceans and millennia, tells a version of the same tale. This universal motif of a great deluge speaks to something fundamental in the human experience, a shared memory or fear written into our oldest stories. From the ancient cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia to the oral traditions of indigenous Australians, water emerges as the ultimate reset button, a cleansing or punitive force wielded by the gods to wash away a flawed world and begin anew. The parallels are too striking to ignore. In the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, a cornerstone of world literature dating back over 4,000 years, the hero Utnapishtim is warned by the god E to build a great boat to survive a flood sent by the disgruntled god Enlil. He loads it with his family, craftsmen, and animals, surviving the storm that obliterates all of humanity. This narrative echoes powerfully in the later Hebrew Bible story of Noah, who is instructed by God to build an ark to save his family and pairs of every animal from a flood meant to purge the world of its wickedness. But the thread goes back even further to the Sumerian myth of Ziusudra, which follows an almost identical plot. This same theme resonates across Asia in the Hindu scriptures, which tell of Manu, the first man, who is warned by a fish, an incarnation of the god Vishnu of an impending deluge. He builds a ship, ties it to the fish's horn, and is guided to safety on a mountaintop, becoming the progenitor of a new human race. This pattern of a catastrophic flood and a single righteous survivor is not confined to the Eastern Hemisphere. In the Americas, the Maya sacred text, the Popol Vuh, describes a great flood sent by the gods to destroy their first, failed attempt at creating humanity, a race of people made of wood who had forgotten to honor their creators. Among Native American tribes, flood narratives are equally pervasive. The Choctaw people tell of a great loss of life when a powerful leader used magic to swell the waters, submerging the land as a consequence of deep moral failings within the community. The Lenape people of the northeastern woodlands have stories of a time when the land was covered by a powerful, rushing sea, sparing only a few who climbed the tallest trees or were carried to safety on the back of a turtle. So why do these stories appear everywhere? Scholars point to two compelling explanations. The first is a shared geological reality. The end of the last ice age, roughly 12,000 years ago, was a period of dramatic environmental upheaval. As massive continental glaciers melted, global sea levels rose by hundreds of feet, inundating vast coastal plains that had been home to humans for millennia. For generations of people living along those shores, it would have seemed as if the ocean itself was slowly, inexorably, and terrifyingly reclaiming the world. Furthermore, many regions are prone to catastrophic, localized flooding from tsunamis triggered by undersea earthquakes or from immense rainfall from systems like monsoons. A single, devastating regional flood could easily become memorialized in the mythology of that area, growing in scale with each telling until it represented a global cataclysm. The second reason lies in the powerful symbolic utility of the story itself. Water is the ultimate symbol of both life and death, creation and destruction. It is the primordial soup from which life is believed to have emerged, yet it holds the power to erase entire civilizations in an instant. A great flood myth provides a profound narrative framework for exploring themes of divine judgment, moral failure, and the possibility of renewal. Each culture adapts the core story to reinforce its own specific values. For the Mesopotamians, the flood was a result of the gods' noisy, bothersome humans. For the Hebrews, it was a punishment for corruption and violence. For the Choctaw, it was a consequence of social disharmony and a failure to live in balance. The flood myth becomes a foundational cautionary tale, a cultural tool used to teach lessons about obedience, humility, and the importance of living in accordance with divine or natural law. When we look at the sunken cities we explore archaeologically, we can now see them through this rich, cross-cultural lens. A drowned building is no longer just a ruin, it is a potential touchstone for these universal stories. It becomes a physical symbol of that fragile relationship between humanity and nature, a testament to the hubris that believes any civilization is permanent, and a reminder of the cyclical nature of existence, that from endings come new beginnings. By comparing these myths, we achieve a much deeper decoding. We move beyond simply cataloging stones and pottery to understanding the profound, shared human emotions, awe, fear, and hope that we have always projected onto the power of the sea and the secrets it keeps. There's a profound and almost haunting beauty in the idea of a city sleeping beneath the waves, a concept that tugs at something deep within us, blending awe and melancholy into a uniquely powerful emotion. Think about it, these were once bustling centers of human life, filled with the sounds of markets, the prayers in temples, and the footsteps of generations. Now they exist in a silent, watery museum, visited only by fish and the occasional diver. This transformation from a vibrant hub to a ghostly relic is a stark reminder of time's relentless passage and nature's ultimate authority. It's not just about the loss itself, but about the poignant beauty found in that loss. The way coral encrusts ancient statues, how sunlight filters through submerged colonnades. These scenes are visually stunning, but they also carry a heavy emotional weight. They make us contemplate the impermanence of our own creations and the stories that are inevitably left behind. This fascination is deeply rooted in our psychology. Sunken cities represent the ultimate what if. They are tangible proof of entire worlds that vanished, offering a glimpse into alternate histories and forgotten ways of life. They sit at that fragile boundary between order and chaos, between the civilization we build and the natural forces that can so easily reclaim it. This taps into a universal human anxiety about collapse, whether from environmental disaster, war, or simply the passage of time. Exploring these ruins allows us to safely confront these fears. It's a way to process the concept of an ending, to see that even in destruction there can be preservation and a strange, quiet peace. It satisfies a deep curiosity about the unknown and answers a primal call to explore hidden realms, much like the allure of deep space or unexplored caves. Mythology has long prepared us for this fascination. For thousands of years, cultures around the world have told stories of great floods and sunken kingdoms. Plato's Atlantis is the most famous, a powerful and advanced civilization that fell out of favor with the gods and was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. But these tales are far more than simple entertainment. They often serve as moral parables cautioning against hubris, greed, and disrespect for the natural world. The message is clear: even the mightiest empire is not immune to nature's judgment. These stories encoded very real geological memories, tsunamis, earthquakes, rising sea levels, that ancient peoples experienced but couldn't explain scientifically. The myth provided a framework to understand the terrifying and inexplicable power that could make the very ground beneath their feet disappear. So when we discover a real sunken city like Dwarka or Pavlopetri, it feels like we are uncovering the truth behind the legend, bridging the gap between ancient story and historical fact. The eerie preservation of these sites adds another layer to their allure. While land-based ruins are exposed to wind, rain, looting, and modern development, underwater sites are often protected by layers of sediment and the stability of their aquatic environment. The low oxygen levels slow decay, meaning wood, organic material, and even delicate artifacts can survive for millennia in stunning condition. This allows archaeologists to find a frozen moment in time, a meal left on a table, a tool dropped in a courtyard, offering an intimate, heartbreakingly human connection to the past that is often missing from other ruins. This pristine state allows experts to piece together daily life with incredible accuracy, turning scattered stones and pottery into a coherent narrative of how people lived, worked, and worshipped. Ultimately, the allure of sunken cities is a complex tapestry woven from threads of beauty, fear, curiosity, and respect. They are monuments to human ambition and to nature's power, to stories told and those waiting to be decoded. This powerful attraction is what pulls us beneath the surface, compelling us to search for answers in the silent halls of drowned worlds. The pace of discovery beneath the waves is accelerating at a breathtaking rate, fundamentally reshaping our understanding of the human story with each passing year. Advanced technologies are acting as a key, unlocking chambers of history we never knew existed, and the findings are nothing short of revolutionary. Take the Gulf of Khambhat off the western coast of India, for instance. In the early 2000s, researchers employing side-scan sonar made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. They had identified what appeared to be the remains of a massive, sprawling settlement, complete with geometric structures and artifacts recovered from the site that were initially carbon dated to an astonishing 7,500 years before the Common Era. If these dates hold up to further rigorous scrutiny, this would mean a sophisticated urban center existed in India millennia before the great cities of the Indus Valley civilization like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa ever rose to prominence. This discovery doesn't just add a new chapter to history, it suggests an entirely unknown prologue, a precursor civilization whose achievements may have laid the groundwork for everything that followed in the region. Equally mysterious are the sonar images captured off the coast of Cuba, near the western tip of the island. At depths of around 2,200 feet, a team working with advanced underwater survey equipment documented a series of seemingly symmetrical and geometric formations spread across a vast area of the ocean floor. The structures appear to feature large stone blocks arranged in circular and linear patterns, some resembling great arches and pyramids. The immense depth immediately presents a profound puzzle. For this area to have been above water, we would have to look back to a time when sea levels were dramatically lower, potentially placing the site's origin at the end of the last ice age, over 10,000 years ago. This timeline is so ancient it challenges conventional narratives about the technological capabilities of prehistoric humans and has perhaps inevitably sparked intense debate. While some geologists argue these could be unusual natural formations created by tectonic forces, others see the hand of human intelligence, raising the tantalizing possibility of a lost culture with seafaring or architectural skills we never imagined. Closer to the traditional cradle of Western civilization, in the Mediterranean, another find is forcing a rethink of Neolithic capabilities. Just a few miles off the coast of the Greek village of Makri, near Athens, lies a submerged settlement known as the Lambaeana site. This is not a city of stone blocks, but the remains of an early farming community from the Neolithic era, dating back roughly 5,000 years. The discovery of tools, pottery, and the foundations of simple dwellings on the seabed provides concrete evidence that what we now consider coastal land was once inhabited dry ground before rising seas claimed it. But the implications run deeper than just mapping ancient shorelines. The presence of such communities, along with evidence of obsidian trade from the island of Milos found at other submerged Neolithic sites in the Aegean, strongly suggests that sea travel in this region was a common and sophisticated practice much earlier than historians previously believed. These were not primitive people clinging to the coastline. They were capable mariners using the sea as a highway to connect, trade, and spread ideas, fundamentally altering our perception of Neolithic society as purely agrarian and landlocked. What truly unites these disparate discoveries is their powerful ability to blur the once solid line separating myth from documented history. Each new sonar image of a geometric shape in deep water, each piece of pottery pulled from a drowned village, feels like a step toward validating the kinds of stories our ancestors told, tales of great floods, lost lands, and forgotten advanced cultures. The search for a historical basis for Plato's Atlantis continues to drive both serious research and popular fascination, with every new underwater anomaly prompting fresh speculation. This is no longer the domain of any single academic field. Unraveling these mysteries demands a powerful fusion of disciplines. Archaeologists provide the context, geologists determine how and when the land sank, climatologists model ancient sea level changes, and mythologists offer cultural frameworks from oral traditions and ancient texts. It is at this interdisciplinary crossroads that the most compelling interpretations emerge. This golden age of underwater exploration is far from over. If anything, we are just beginning to skim the surface of what the oceans have to hide. With each technological leap in remote sensing, autonomous underwater vehicles, and genetic analysis of submerged sediment, we peel back another layer of time. These ongoing revelations guarantee that the field of submerged archaeology will remain dynamic and gloriously unpredictable, constantly challenging our textbooks and forcing us to expand our vision of human ingenuity, resilience, and history. The deepest waters hold our oldest secrets, and we are finally learning how to listen. This powerful allure of lost worlds beneath the waves has never been confined to academic journals or archaeological reports. It has always surged directly into the heart of our collective imagination, fueling an entire universe of books, films, and games. The silent, crumbling halls of sunken cities provide the perfect setting for storytelling, a place where history and mystery collide to create something truly magical. Think of the pioneering work of Jules Verne in his classic novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where Captain Nemo's iconic submarine, the Nautilus, glides past the ruins of Atlantis itself. Verne masterfully blended the cutting-edge science of his day with a sense of wondrous speculation, introducing millions of readers to the thrilling possibility that the ocean floor was not an empty desert, but a graveyard of forgotten empires. This tradition of blending fact with fantastic fiction was brilliantly continued by Disney's animated feature Atlantis, The Lost Empire, which painted a picture of a highly advanced civilization protected by a mysterious energy source. Its architecture a dazzling fusion of global myths and steampunk technology. These stories do more than just entertain. They plant a seed of curiosity, introducing audiences to the very real concept of submerged ruins, and often sending them down a rabbit hole of researching the actual archaeology that inspired the tale. The interactive nature of video games has taken this engagement to an entirely new level, transforming us from passive observers into active explorers. The Assassin's Creed franchise is a prime example, renowned for its painstaking historical research. In games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, players can literally dive into the Aegean Sea, navigating the submerged ruins of ancient Greek temples and sunken ships, uncovering fragments of history and myth with every discovery. This hands-on, virtual exploration makes the past feel immediate and tangible, allowing players to appreciate the scale and beauty of underwater architecture in a way a textbook never could. Other games use the underwater environment to craft entirely different experiences. The survival horror game Soma uses the crushing pressure and eerie silence of a deep-sea research facility to explore profound questions of consciousness and identity, while the dystopian fantasy of BioShock presents the Art Deco nightmare of Rapture, a city built on the ocean floor whose ideological collapse is mirrored by its physical implosion. These settings leverage the inherent tension and otherworldliness of the deep, making players feel the constant threat of the environment while marveling at the audacity of those who tried to build within it. Cinema, with its powerful visual language, has consistently used submerged settings to evoke a powerful mix of awe and dread. James Cameron's groundbreaking film The Abyss is a masterclass in this, using the terrifying and beautiful depths of the ocean as a backdrop for a first contact story, where the alien is as mysterious and unfathomable as the environment itself. The film's spectacular underwater sequences, achieved with incredible technical innovation, made audiences feel the crushing pressure and luminous wonder of the deep sea. In a different vein, films like Sanctum focus on the claustrophobic peril of underwater cave systems, where magnificent subterranean architecture becomes a deadly trap. Even major blockbusters like Aquaman draw directly on the iconography of sunken cities, presenting the lost kingdom of Atlantis as a vibrant, technologically advanced megalopolis, complete with towering spires and warriors riding giant seahorses. These portrayals, while often fantastical, keep the concept of underwater civilizations fresh and exciting in the popular mind. This widespread cultural representation is a double-edged sword, however. On one hand, it generates immense public interest and support for real-world marine archaeology. A person who first encountered Atlantis through a cartoon or a video game might later find themselves captivated by a documentary about the very real discoveries at Doggerland or Pavlopetri, fostering a greater appreciation for our shared human heritage. This popular fascination can translate into funding for expeditions and a general enthusiasm for historical preservation. On the other hand, these creative interpretations can also cement persistent myths, most notably the idea of hyper-advanced prehistoric technologies that far exceed the actual archaeological evidence. While ancient engineering feats were indeed brilliant, popular culture often exaggerates them into pure magic or alien intervention, sometimes overshadowing the true, more relatable ingenuity of our ancestors. This can lead to the spread of pseudo-archaeological theories that frustrate scholars but are endlessly compelling for audiences seeking mystery. Ultimately, this rich tapestry of creative work serves as a grand, ongoing conversation with the past. Each novel, film, and game that features a sunken city is a testament to our enduring fascination with these places. They act as a cultural canvas, reflecting our contemporary hopes, fears, and curiosities back at us through the lens of a lost world. Whether it's a warning about hubris, a celebration of exploration, or a metaphor for the unknown depths of the human psyche, submerged architecture provides a uniquely powerful setting for storytelling. This constant reinvention and reimagining in popular culture ensures that the secrets of drowned buildings never fade into obscurity. Instead, they are continually rediscovered and reanimated, inspiring each new generation to look out at the horizon and wonder what magnificent ruins might lie just beneath the waves, waiting for their story to be told. The thrill of discovery is undeniable the moment sonar reveals a hidden city or a diver's light glints off a millennia-old artifact. But with every new technological advance that brings these wonders within reach, we are forced to confront a difficult and deeply ethical question. Just because we can explore these sites, does it mean we should? This debate sits at the very heart of modern underwater archaeology, creating a complex tension between our thirst for knowledge and our duty to protect. On one side of this divide are the powerful arguments for excavation. There is so much we simply don't know about our own history, and these submerged sites are unparalleled time capsules. By carefully recovering artifacts, we can answer fundamental questions about ancient trade routes, technological capabilities, and daily life, often correcting historical records that were written by the victors and are therefore incomplete or biased. For cultures whose histories were suppressed or erased by colonization, a sunken site might hold the only tangible proof of their ancestors' achievements, offering a chance to reclaim and celebrate a lost heritage. The data locked in a single piece of waterlogged wood or a preserved seed can tell us more about a civilization's diet, economy, and environment than a dozen ancient texts. Yet, the act of excavation is itself a destructive process. The very moment an artifact is removed from the protective, low-oxygen environment of the seabed, the clock starts ticking on its decay. Even with the most careful conservation techniques, materials can be irreparably damaged by the change in pressure, temperature, and exposure to air. Furthermore, digging into a site can destabilize entire structures, causing walls to collapse and context to be forever lost. This is why many leading archaeologists now champion a preserve-first philosophy. They argue that we should treat these sites not as resources to be mined for information, but as a precious, non-renewable heritage to be safeguarded for future generations. With rapidly improving technology, we can now learn an incredible amount without ever touching a thing. High-resolution 3D photogrammetry can create perfect digital twins of entire ruins, allowing researchers anywhere in the world to conduct virtual excavations. Advanced sonar mapping can reveal the complete layout of a city, and sediment cores can provide environmental data, all while leaving the physical site utterly undisturbed. This ethical dilemma is further complicated by profound cultural considerations. A sunken site is not always an abandoned site. For many indigenous and local communities, these places are not merely archaeological curiosities. They are active spiritual centers, the resting places of ancestors, or landscapes imbued with deep cultural memory. The submerged villages of Native American tribes along North America's coasts, for example, are considered sacred ground. To excavate them without permission is not just academically unethical, it is a profound spiritual violation. This has led to a vital shift in the field toward collaborative archaeology, where researchers work directly with descendant communities from the very beginning of a project. The question is no longer just what we can learn from a site, but who gets to decide its fate. It prioritizes the living cultural connection to the past over a purely scientific claim to knowledge. On the international stage, this complex web of ethics is navigated through frameworks like UNESCO 2000 and One Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage. This treaty explicitly prioritizes in situ preservation, leaving sites where they are, as the first and preferred option. It establishes guidelines against commercial exploitation and urges international cooperation to protect sunken cultural property, particularly from the relentless threat of looters and treasure hunters who destroy context for profit. However, enforcing these rules across vast, remote stretches of ocean is a monumental challenge, and not all nations have ratified the convention, creating legal loopholes that can be exploited. This ongoing struggle forces a global conversation about value. It asks us to weigh the immediate gratification of discovery against the long-term responsibility of preservation, and to acknowledge that the greatest secret some drowned buildings hold might be the wisdom to know when to look and when to simply let them rest. Imagine an archaeologist of the future, not in a wetsuit battling strong currents, but sitting at a console, guiding a swarm of autonomous underwater drones across a digital map of the ocean floor. This is not science fiction. It is the imminent future of underwater exploration powered by artificial intelligence. Machine learning algorithms are being trained to scrutinize the immense datasets collected by sonar and LiDAR systems, learning to distinguish between a natural rock formation and the telltale right angles of a human-made wall with a speed and accuracy that dwarfs human capability. These AI scouts can process thousands of square miles of seabed in the time it would take a traditional team to survey a single grid, flagging potential sites for closer inspection and dramatically increasing our chances of finding the next Dwarka or another unknown metropolis lost to time. This technological leap means we are no longer searching for a needle in a haystack. We are building a magnetic needle finder. Alongside these digital explorers, the physical tools for diving deeper and staying longer are undergoing a revolution. Next-generation atmospheric diving suits, essentially wearable submarines, are in development that would allow researchers to work at depths of over 1,000 feet for hours on end without the lengthy and dangerous decompression stops required today. For the most extreme depths, we are moving beyond bulky, remotely operated vehicles to sleek, autonomous underwater vehicles that can map entire underwater mountain ranges on a single battery charge, their sensor pods detecting faint chemical traces or magnetic anomalies that hint at buried structures. These robotic ambassadors will soon be our eyes and hands in the Hadal Zone, the deepest parts of the ocean trenches, places we have barely begun to explore, where who knows what forgotten chapters of human prehistory might lie under the immense pressure. Perhaps the most intimate window into the past will come from a technology that seems borrowed from a crime lab: sedimentary DNA analysis. For centuries, archaeologists have studied the grand ruins and the large artifacts, the pots and the swords. But the future lies in the microscopic. By extracting and sequencing the ancient DNA trapped in layers of seabed silt, scientists can reconstruct an entire ecosystem from a handful of mud. They will be able to identify the specific plants that grew in a sunken city's gardens, pinpoint the exact species of fish its inhabitants ate, and even detect the livestock they raised. This paleogenetic evidence can reveal details about trade, as the presence of non-native plant DNA could indicate ancient maritime routes. Most astonishingly, by analyzing the human genetic material shed into the environment from skin cells, hair, and waste, researchers might one day be able to sketch the genetic ancestry of a city's population without ever finding a single skeleton, understanding their origins, their health, and their connections to other peoples. This wealth of new data will be made accessible not just to academics in white gloves, but to the entire world through the power of virtual and augmented reality. Imagine pulling on a headset and instantly being transported to the sunken streets of Pavlopetri 5,000 years ago, watching digital reconstructions of its inhabitants go about their day based on archaeological evidence. You could float through the grand halls of Heracleion with virtual guides explaining the significance of each statue and inscription. This digital preservation creates a permanent, perfect record of a site while allowing it to remain physically untouched and protected from the damage caused by tourism and physical excavation. It democratizes discovery, turning anyone with a smartphone into a virtual underwater archaeologist and fostering a global community of stewards for our submerged heritage. Yet for all this incredible technological promise, the enduring power of these drowned cities lies in the profound questions they compel us to ask. Each discovery solves one mystery only to unveil a dozen more. Are there vastly older cities lying in the deep abyssal plains, remnants of human societies that thrived during the last ice age when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower? The controversial sonar images from the Gulf of Khambhat in India, if validated, could point to a sophisticated culture existing over 9,000 years ago, a discovery that would force a complete rewrite of the history of civilization. Did ancient cultures have transoceanic contact that we have yet to comprehend? The enigmatic similarities between certain Egyptian and Mesoamerican pyramids, or the potential human-made origins of the Yonaguni monument, continue to fuel legitimate scientific debate about the possibility of prehistoric seafaring that connected distant continents. The ultimate future of this field lies not in any single technology, but in a new model of collaboration. The most exciting discoveries will emerge from the fusion of once separate disciplines. Geneticists will work with oceanographers to track ancient human migration patterns across lost coastal plains. Climate scientists will provide precise models of prehistoric sea level rise to help archaeologists pinpoint promising search areas. Specialists in digital humanities will create immersive, interactive archives of underwater sites. This interdisciplinary approach is our most powerful tool, turning scattered data points into a coherent narrative of our past. As we stand on the brink of this new era, the ocean is finally ready to give up its secrets, promising a future where the lines between mythology and history are not just blurred but erased, revealing the epic story of humanity in all its forgotten glory. For centuries, the city of Heracleion existed as little more than a whisper from the ancient world, a name mentioned by the Greek historian Herodotus and a few other classical writers. They spoke of a fabulously wealthy port city at the very mouth of the Nile, a gateway to Egypt where grand temples stood and all trade from the Mediterranean had to first pass through. Yet with no physical trace, it faded into legend, with many modern scholars dismissing it as a myth or a confused account of the known city of Alexandria. That all changed in the year 2000 when French underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudiot, after years of systematic searching, made a discovery that would send shockwaves through the historical community. There, 30 feet beneath the turquoise surface of Abaukia Bay, lay the scattered, magnificent ruins of Thonis-Heracleion, lost to the sea for over a millennium. The city's descent was not the result of a single cataclysmic event, but a tragic combination of geological fragility and environmental change. The entire Nile Delta is built on a foundation of soft, unstable clay and silt deposited by the river over thousands of years. This ground is highly susceptible to a phenomenon known as soil liquefaction, where solid ground can suddenly behave like a liquid during seismic activity, such as an earthquake. Experts believe a series of earthquakes in the region, possibly coupled with a tsunami, triggered this liquefaction around the 8th century of the Common Era. The unstable ground beneath Heracleion simply gave way, causing buildings and monuments to tilt, collapse, and slide into the water. This initial disaster was then compounded by rising sea levels, which slowly and completely swallowed what remained of the city, sealing it in a watery tomb of sand and sediment. What emerged from that silt was a time capsule of breathtaking scope, frozen in a moment of its bustling prime. The first and most awe-inspiring finds were the colossal statues that once guarded the city's great temple. A 16-foot-tall statue of Hapi, the Egyptian god of the Nile flood, was discovered, a symbol of fertility and abundance. Nearby lay a stunning Ptolemaic queen carved from red granite, depicted with the iconography of a goddess. Perhaps most evocative of all was the nearly 18-foot-tall statue of a pharaoh, discovered upright but broken into several pieces, a silent sentinel who had stood his post for centuries in the darkness. These monumental figures were not alone. They were accompanied by dozens of smaller statues of gods and pharaohs, creating an underwater gallery of Egypt's divine and royal lineage. But the treasures of Heracleion extended far beyond stone. The team discovered more than 60 ancient shipwrecks buried in the clay of the bay, the largest number of vessels ever found from this period. Their presence confirms Heracleion's legendary status as a mandatory port of entry, a bustling harbor where ships from across the Greek world and beyond would anchor to have their cargo inspected and taxed before proceeding up the Nile. This commercial heart is further evidenced by the recovery of countless gold coins and bronze weights used by merchants and tax collectors to measure value and facilitate trade. The most significant textual find was a massive black granite stele, nearly 2 meters tall, commissioned by Pharaoh Nectanebo I around 380 BCE. Inscribed in both hieroglyphics and ancient Greek, it decreed that 10% of the taxes on all goods imported from Greece into the city of Thonis, the Egyptian name for the city the Greeks called Heracleion, were to be dedicated to the temple of the goddess Neith. This one artifact provided the undeniable, rock-solid proof that Thonis and Heracleion were not two different cities, but one and the same, finally reconciling the Egyptian and Greek historical records. The architecture and artifacts of Heracleion reveal a city that was a vibrant melting pot of cultures long before Alexander the Great founded Alexandria. The blend of Egyptian and Greek religious practices is palpable. Alongside traditional Egyptian amulets and statues of Osiris and Isis, archaeologists found Greek offerings. This cultural fusion made Heracleion a critical hub not just for goods, but for ideas, a place where Egyptian astronomy and mathematics met Greek philosophy and science. This is perfectly embodied by the discovery of the Naus of the Decades, a sacred shrine or small temple chamber covered in intricate hieroglyphic texts and astronomical charts. This remarkable object, dating from around 380 BCE, reveals an advanced understanding of celestial cycles, tracking 10-day periods and linking them to the rising of specific stars and the influence of Egyptian gods. It is a sophisticated scientific and religious calendar, a testament to the intellectual life that thrived in this cosmopolitan center. Perhaps the most precious gifts from Heracleion are the delicate organic materials that would have vanished forever on land. The waterlogged, oxygen-starved clay acted as a perfect preservative, protecting fragile wood and papyrus for over 1,000 years. Divers recovered beautifully crafted wooden votive offerings, including a ceremonial barge used in religious processions for the god Osiris. Most remarkably, they found ancient papyrus scrolls, their texts faded but their very existence a minor miracle. These fragile documents, written in Greek, include official records and legal contracts, offering an incredibly rare, direct glimpse into the bureaucratic and everyday lives of the city's inhabitants, from priests and merchants to sailors and farmers. Heracleion's story is a powerful reminder of the fragility of even the greatest centers of civilization, and the relentless power of the natural world. Its rediscovery does more than just confirm an ancient legend. It illuminates a pivotal historical period that was previously known only through fragmented texts. It provides the tangible, physical evidence of a thriving economic and cultural gateway, a city that was the literal and figurative bridge between the ancient Egyptian and Greek worlds. The silent, stately ruins lying on the bay floor are a hauntingly beautiful monument to a lost world of exchange and belief, proving that the sea which claimed this great city also became the very thing that preserved its secrets for a future generation to discover. While we often focus on the destructive power that sank these cities, water's role in global mythology is infinitely more profound and layered. It is far more than an agent of chaos. It is the original source, the great womb from which all life is born. Countless creation myths begin not with land, but with a dark, endless, and primordial ocean. In the Babylonian Enigma Elish, the universe starts with just two entities, the freshwater god Apsu and the saltwater goddess Tiamat, whose mingled waters create the first generation of gods. Similarly, the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories tell of ancestral spirits emerging from a featureless sea to shape the land and give it form. This concept of water as the fundamental substance of existence transforms our view of a sunken city. Its submergence is not merely a catastrophe. It can be seen as a symbolic return to the source, a reunification with the primal, creative forces that began everything. This idea of return is central to many flood narratives, which are less about pure punishment and more about cosmic renewal. The Great Deluge in the Bible, or the Hindu concept of pralaya, a periodic cosmic dissolution, doesn't just wipe the slate clean out of anger. It serves as a necessary reset, a purification that washes away the accumulated corruption of an age to make way for a new and more perfect cycle of creation. The water destroys the old world so that a new one can emerge from the metaphorical waters again, reborn and pristine. This symbolic cleansing is why water is so universally used in rituals of baptism and spiritual purification across religions. It represents the washing away of the old self and the emergence of a new, enlightened being. Beyond creation and cleansing, water is deeply tied to the realm of wisdom and the hidden self. Its depth, its mystery, and its unseen currents make it a perfect metaphor for the subconscious mind. To dive into water in a mythological sense is to embark on a journey into the unknown parts of the psyche, to seek hidden knowledge or confront deep truths. In Celtic myths, heroes often gain wisdom by drinking from sacred wells. In Norse mythology, the god Odin sacrifices an eye for a drink from the well of Erd, gaining immense knowledge of the past and future. This association forces us to reconsider what it means to find a temple or altar beneath the waves. Perhaps its placement was intentional, a design meant to bring the worshipper into direct contact with these subconscious or divine forces. A structure submerged in a sacred spring or at the mouth of a river might not be a ruined building but a perfectly positioned gateway to the underworld or the divine. This rich dual nature of water, both life-giver and life-taker, is what makes it such a powerful tool for decoding the meaning behind submerged architecture. It prevents us from making simplistic interpretations. A city under the sea is not automatically a story of punishment for hubris like Atlantis. It could be a story of sacred integration. The legendary sunken city of Wise in Breton folklore, for example, was said to be swallowed by the sea as punishment for its princess's sin. Yet local legends also speak of hearing its beautiful church bells ring from beneath the waves on calm days, suggesting its sanctity was not destroyed but transformed and preserved by the water. By embracing this more nuanced symbolic understanding, we stop seeing these sites as mere collections of ruined buildings and start reading them as profound philosophical statements set in stone. The ancient architects who built structures aligned with sacred rivers, oriented toward the sea, or even designed to be flooded during certain seasons, were likely embedding deep spiritual meanings into their work. They were weaving their understanding of creation, destruction, and rebirth directly into their environment. When we look at a sunken city, we are therefore not just looking at a tragedy frozen in time. We are looking at a dialogue between humanity and the most powerful force on Earth, a conversation about where we come from, the impermanence of our works, and the eternal hope of renewal that lies in the deep. This incredible foresight displayed by ancient builders reveals a deep and intuitive dialogue with the aquatic world, a conversation where every architectural choice served a dual purpose of survival and symbolism. Rather than viewing water as an adversary to be walled out, these civilizations learned to collaborate with it, engineering solutions that were as spiritually significant as they were structurally sound. Consider the practical genius on display at the 5,000-year-old city of Pavlopetri. Its urban planners didn't just lay out streets and buildings, they designed an entire ecosystem for managing moisture. Structures were consistently erected on raised stone foundations, a simple yet effective technique that elevated living spaces above the regular splash of storm surges and the creep of seasonal flooding. This was complemented by a sophisticated network of carved stone drains and channels that would funnel rainwater and waste away from public areas, preventing erosion and maintaining public health. This wasn't mere construction, it was a form of proactive environmental negotiation, demonstrating an understanding that a coastal city must be dynamic, able to breathe with the tides rather than rigidly resist them. The material science behind these adaptations could be staggeringly advanced, as exemplified by the Roman mastery of hydraulic concrete. While modern concrete crumbles and weakens with prolonged saltwater exposure, Roman engineers developed a unique recipe using volcanic ash, lime, and seawater that performed a kind of underwater alchemy. When this mixture was submerged, a chemical reaction with the saltwater would form rare crystals within the material, causing it to actually strengthen and become more durable over centuries. This is why the magnificent harbors of Caesarea Maritima and the luxurious submerged villas of Baiae still stand today as testament to a technology that was lost for over a millennium and is only now being fully reverse engineered by modern scientists. It represents a peak of material innovation that we are still striving to replicate for our own coastal infrastructure. Beyond sheer durability, the scale of hydrological engineering was breathtaking. The Khmer Empire's temple complex of Angkor Wat is famously surrounded by a vast moat, but this was far more than a defensive barrier or a decorative reflecting pool. It was the centerpiece of an immense, sprawling network of reservoirs and canals that acted as a massive water management system. This grid collected and stored monsoon rainwater, redistributing it for agriculture throughout the dry season, effectively mitigating the challenges of an unpredictable climate to support a vast urban population. Symbolically, this moat represented the mythical cosmic ocean surrounding the sacred mountain of the gods, meaning the entire city was designed as a cosmological map, with its water features serving both a vital practical function and a profound spiritual one. We can see this same blend of practical and symbolic intelligence in the potential designs of a city like Dwarka. While its full layout remains partially shrouded in mystery, the descriptions in ancient texts and the archaeological evidence suggest a port city engineered for life at the water's edge. It is highly plausible that its builders incorporated sluice gates and tidal channels into the urban fabric. These features would have allowed them to control the flow of seawater, perhaps preventing the harbor from silting up managing the draft of ships at different tides, or even creating controlled flooding zones for the cleaning of public spaces. This level of integration shows a society that didn't just build near the water. They wove the water itself into the very functioning of their city, treating it as a resource to be harnessed rather than a threat to be feared. This harmonious relationship was often guided by a deep cosmological awareness. The orientation of structures was frequently a deliberate act of sacred alignment. A temple's main gateway might be meticulously positioned to face the rising sun over a particular river, or its central axis might be aligned with the flow of a sacred spring. This wasn't arbitrary. It was a way of anchoring human architecture to the divine order of the natural world. The building itself became a conduit between the earthly and the celestial, and the water flowing past its foundations or contained within its ritual baths was an active participant in that spiritual connection, used for purification rituals and seen as a carrier of divine blessing. The legacy of these ancient adaptations has never been more relevant. As 21st century engineers and architects grapple with the existential threat of global sea level rise, they are increasingly looking to the past for inspiration. The modern concept of living shorelines, which use natural materials and designs to absorb wave energy and combat erosion, directly echoes the principles seen in ancient coastal settlements. The rediscovery of Roman hydraulic concrete is informing new research into self-healing, durable marine materials. The Khmer water management system is studied as a classic example of long-term sustainable urban planning. These ancient builders provide us with a powerful library of time-tested solutions, demonstrating that resilience is not about building higher walls against the sea, but about designing with flexibility, intelligence, and a respectful acknowledgement of the water's power. Their work challenges our modern assumption of technological superiority, offering a humbling and masterclass in how to build a legacy that endures. It's a fascinating twist in the story of discovery that some of our greatest archaeological finds began not with a shovel or a sonar ping, but with a story told by firelight. For generations, these ancient narratives were dismissed as mere fantasy, the imaginative products of pre-scientific cultures. Yet time and again, these very legends have proven to be the most valuable treasure maps, guiding researchers to real-world locations that were waiting patiently beneath the earth or the waves. The most famous example is, of course, Heinrich Schliemann's obsessive pursuit of the city of Troy. Armed with a dog-eared copy of Homer's Iliad, which everyone else considered a beautiful work of fiction, he followed its geographic clues to the coast of modern-day Turkey. His dramatic excavation in the 1870s revealed not just one city, but multiple layers of ancient settlement, proving that the epic poem contained a kernel of historical truth about a major conflict. This same pattern of myth-guiding Spade has played out beneath the ocean. For centuries, the city of Dwarka was known only from its vivid description in the ancient Hindu epic, the Mahabharata, a magnificent city of gold and palaces built by the god Krishna, destined to be reclaimed by the sea upon his death. To many, it was a powerful allegory, but to a handful of determined marine archaeologists, it was a hypothesis. They turned to the text, which provided descriptions of its location relative to other landmarks, and began to survey the waters off the Gujarat coast. Their efforts were stunningly rewarded with the discovery of a vast, submerged settlement, its artifacts dating to a time that aligns remarkably with the traditional timeline of the legend. These myths succeed as guides because they are often astonishingly specific. They are not just vague tales of a land lost to the sea. They are filled with what we might call ethnographic and geographic data. A story might describe a city lying to the west of a particular river mouth, near a grove of specific trees, or facing a mountain that looks like a sleeping giant. These details, passed down orally for generations before being written down, can act as a form of coded coordinates. When cross-referenced with geological surveys that show where coastlines have shifted or where land has subsided, these poetic descriptions can suddenly point to very real, tangible locations. The legend provides the what and the where, while modern science provides the how and the when, creating a powerful partnership between the humanities and the hard sciences. This process reveals that these stories were never intended to be literal history books in the modern sense. Instead, they are repositories of cultural memory, a way for a society to encode a traumatic or transformative event, like the sudden submergence of a coastal home, into a durable narrative framework. The flood isn't just a flood, it becomes the wrath of a god. The sinking city isn't just a geological accident, it becomes a moral lesson about hubris. The truth is preserved, but it is wrapped in layers of symbolic meaning that ensure the story will be remembered and retold. However, this path from myth to discovery is fraught with potential pitfalls, and the line between inspired hypothesis and reckless pseudo-archaeology can be dangerously thin. The most cautionary tale in this field is the endless, often fantastical, search for Plato's Atlantis. The philosopher's account is incredibly seductive, describing an advanced island civilization that fell out of favor with the gods and sank in a single day and night. This has led countless enthusiasts over the centuries to propose locations for Atlantis everywhere from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to the Andes Mountains, often twisting geological evidence and ignoring cultural context to fit their theory. This kind of speculation can actively harm real archaeology, promoting sensationalism over sober science, and sometimes even leading to the irresponsible disturbance of legitimate sites in the quest for proof. The key to navigating this successfully is a disciplined balance of open-mindedness and rigorous skepticism. The myth should be treated not as a revealed truth to be proven at all costs, but as a starting point for a scientific investigation, a compelling hypothesis to be tested against concrete evidence. When this balance is achieved, the results enrich our understanding on every level. For the field of archaeology, a myth can provide a crucial context that turns a collection of inert ruins into a living story. Finding a network of streets is one thing. Understanding that those streets were once walked by people who believed their city was built by a divine hero is another thing entirely. It adds a profound human dimension to the cold stone. Conversely, archaeology gives back to the myth by grounding it in reality. It validates the cultural memory embedded within the story, showing that the ancestors were not merely making things up but were recording a real experience, however symbolically. This symbiotic relationship demonstrates the immense value of interdisciplinary work. It bridges the gap between the objective analysis of material science and the subjective interpretation of storytelling, proving that to truly understand our past, we need both the hard data of the geologist and the sacred stories of the elder. The drowned buildings themselves become the meeting point where a legend's whisper is answered by the solid, enduring proof of stone. Yet this remarkable preservation comes with its own set of profound vulnerabilities. The very inaccessibility that has protected these sites for centuries is now being breached by modern technology, and not always with noble intentions. Looting is a devastating and relentless threat. Unlike archaeologists who meticulously document every fragment and its relationship to the whole, treasure hunters operate with a brutal efficiency, targeting only objects of high market value: gold coins, intact amphorae, bronze statues. In their rush, they use powerful propellers to blast away centuries of protective silt, smashing through ancient walls and indiscriminately destroying the irreplaceable context that gives these artifacts their true meaning. A coin alone can tell us its weight and mint. a coin found nestled beside a specific pottery shard, inside a building identified as a merchant's house, next to a set of weighing scales, tells an entire story of trade, economy, and daily life. This context is the true treasure, and it is obliterated in the hunt for profit, leaving behind a scarred and meaningless landscape. Compounding this human threat is the accelerating impact of our changing climate. The delicate equilibrium that has preserved organic materials for millennia is being violently disrupted. Warmer ocean waters are not just a statistic, they create ideal conditions for new, aggressive strains of bacteria and microorganisms that feast on wood, leather, and even ancient shipwrecks. The chemical composition of the sea itself is altering through acidification, which can accelerate the corrosion of metal artifacts and weaken stonework that has stood firm for ages. Furthermore, the increased frequency and intensity of storms churn up the seabed with terrifying force. Hurricane-strength waves can scatter carefully layered artifacts across miles, burying them under shifting sand or smashing delicate structures against unforgiving rock. A site that has remained perfectly intact for 3,000 years can be irrevocably scrambled by a single severe weather event, its historical sequence lost forever. Even well-intentioned human interest poses a significant risk. The allure of diving on a sunken city is powerful, and underwater tourism is a growing industry. Without careful management, however, this curiosity leads to love that can literally crush what it admires. A diver's careless fin kick can send a cloud of silt that settles on and obscures delicate features, while repeated contact from hands or equipment wears away at ancient surfaces. The anchors of tourist boats can drag across and scar entire sections of a site, and the temptation to take a small pottery shard as a souvenir, a seemingly harmless act, is a form of looting that collectively strips a site of its smaller, yet equally important pieces of evidence. The bubbles from a regulator exhaust can also be surprisingly damaging, as they accelerate erosion on delicate surfaces when they are constantly streaming over the same spot. Faced with this multi-front assault, conservationists are pioneering a sophisticated arsenal of protection strategies that prioritize preservation over excavation. The guiding principle is increasingly shifting towards in situ preservation, the idea that the best way to protect a site is to leave it exactly where it is, stabilized and monitored. This can involve carefully reburying exposed structures with sand or geotextile mats to shield them from currents and light, or using innovative cathodic protection systems, similar to those used on modern ships, to slow the corrosion of metal objects. Alongside this physical protection, digital archaeology has become an indispensable tool. Through high-resolution photogrammetry, every stone, every artifact, can be photographed from countless angles to create a perfect three-dimensional digital twin. This virtual model allows anyone in the world to explore the site in immense detail without ever causing a single grain of sand to shift, democratizing access while eliminating physical risk. These efforts are underpinned by a complex and evolving web of international law and cooperation. The 2001 UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage provides a crucial legal framework, establishing ethical guidelines and encouraging nations to work together to protect sunken sites, particularly those in international waters. The precedent set by the agreement between the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and France to treat the wreck of the RMS Titanic as a memorial site, protecting it from salvage and intrusive expeditions, demonstrates a growing global consensus that some places are too historically significant to be exploited. Ultimately, the most powerful tool may be education, transforming public perception of these sites from sunken treasure troves to be plundered into irreplaceable museums of the deep. It is about fostering a sense of shared global stewardship, recognizing that protecting these drowned chapters of our story is not about locking away the past, but about ensuring its silent, profound testimony remains intact for all the generations yet to come. As we resurface from the depths of this exploration, we carry with us a newfound appreciation for the secrets written in drowned buildings. These silent structures resting on the ocean floor are far more than ruins. They are profound storytellers, each stone and artifact a syllable in a narrative that spans millennia. From the legendary spires of Atlantis that ignited our collective imagination to the very real, awe-inspiring discoveries at Dwarka, Pavlopetri, and Heracleion, we have journeyed through a unique corridor of time. This voyage has revealed not just how our ancestors built, but why, unveiling a deep-seated human drive to create, to believe, and to leave a mark that echoes beyond a single lifetime. We have witnessed the breathtaking ingenuity of ancient engineers who didn't fight the water, but learned its rhythms, crafting materials and designs that collaborated with the sea. Their hydraulic concrete, interlocking stones, and climate-adaptive city plans stand as a masterclass in resilience, offering powerful lessons for our own era of environmental challenge. We have seen how the grand, sweeping myths of floods and sunken kingdoms often cradle a precious seed of truth, a cultural memory of real geological events that shaped civilizations. These stories are not mere fables, they are the ancient world's way of processing trauma, encoding warnings, and preserving identity across generations. Most importantly, this journey connects us. It bridges the gap between the past and the present, between the academic and the personal. It allows us to touch the dreams and fears of people separated from us by thousands of years, yet linked by the same fundamental hopes and struggles. These underwater time capsules remind us of the beautiful, fragile impermanence of our own creations and the awesome, dual nature of water, a force that gives life, yet can also reclaim everything in an instant. The lessons held in these submerged halls have never been more urgent. As our own coastlines shift and sea levels rise, the stories of Dwarka's submergence and Pavlopetri's gradual abandonment are no longer distant history. They are poignant case studies in adaptation, resilience, and the consequences of ignoring our environment. They urge us to look forward with wisdom, to build with foresight and respect for the natural world, and to protect the vulnerable cultural heritage that tells the story of humanity. We would love to hear what resonated with you most on this journey. Did the convergence of myth and reality at Dwarka capture your imagination? Does the technological genius of Roman concrete fill you with awe? Or does the silent, poignant beauty of these lost cities simply leave you reflective? Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries of our past, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the wonders of mythology and history. Thank you for joining us on this incredible descent. Until next time, keep looking